everyone, and welcome to Let's Heal with Beth Jones. That's me, your host. My mission is to bring the power of healing to trauma and abuse survivors. That's why every guest on this show will bring you an amazing story of healing in action. So come on, everyone, let's heal. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Let's Heal with Beth Jones. I am very excited for today's episode. It is the last of the 5 episodes that I'm bringing you where we are honoring this month, April, and Child Abuse Prevention Month. I have with me today my friend, Susie Vibrial, who's an amazing human being. She is an angel on this earth. And in fact, I was kidding with her a little bit earlier. If you can see her screen and how she's coming in, there's a bit of a little ethereal feel to it because that represents the angel who she is. So with that, welcome, Susie.
Thank you for having me. And it takes an angel to know an angel, Beth Jones. So there.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much. Would you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. So I'm Susie Vibrial, and I'm the founder and CEO of Room Redux, and we are a nonprofit organization. We transform the rooms and lives of children who have faced sexual and physical abuse. We do this anonymously, which means the children never see us, and we do this in one day.
Such amazing work that you all do. And I very recently discovered you and the organization Room Redux, but I have a very soft place in my heart for the organization, specifically what you do, which we will talk about as we're going forward in our conversation. Of course, that's because of my history and some of the specific work that I have done on my healing journey around rooms. So it's a pretty cool intersect of my own and that I feel to the organization. I'm quite passionate about the work that you all do. So congratulations on that work. Now, many of my guests that I have on this show have an intersection of their own personal journey and what they've been through that sometimes leads them to life purpose and the work that they do. Others are just born into this world to be resource or tools that help us to heal, right? Those of us who need to heal. And I think you're in that latter category, which is, I'll say from my own experience, probably a blessing for you. But would you share with us a little bit your path about how you got to where you are today with Room Redux?
Sure. So I was a family advocate at a children's advocacy center for 3 years, 3 months. At first, I interned there during my master's. Now I'm working on my doctorate, by the way, but thank you. While I was interning there, they asked me to work there. And so I did. And my eyes were open. I found out the worst things that I'd ever heard in my entire life, things that are happening to children right here in this county, in this town, in this state, in this country, in this world. And very often parents and caregivers would bring their children to counseling at the center every week. So I would talk to them and they would say, she's starting to talk in counseling, but she's still not sleeping in her bed. She's making a pallet on the floor. He's sleeping on the couch. They don't want to have friends over. They're making bad grades. They're just not thriving. And it occurred to me that these children are very often going back to a room where abuse occurred, or there are triggers. And what I always say is, even if abuse didn't happen in that room, if it happened at grandpa's or a hotel or outside, wherever it happened, they still deserve to know that they're loved and cared about by people who don't even know them and who expect nothing from them. So environment change, that's huge. You and I, we want our places to be beautiful. You have, I can see your background, beautiful house. You've got your fabulous book, by the way, fabulous book.
Thank you.
When we get home, we want to kick off our shoes and be comfortable down to the couch, the colors. I've got bright orange, the rugs on our feet on the floor, the lighting, everything. And that's what these children need too. They need a space to call their own, a place where they feel safe and they feel comfortable.
So with what you just said there, you have covered awareness, you have covered love, you have covered healing, and you have covered environment and our well-being, right? Which is amazing in what you've said there. Let's go through some of that. All right. So let's talk first about awareness, because you are providing a healing resource for children by helping them to change the environment and or to feel love from people who they don't even know, which we all need. Every one of us needs, but especially as survivors, we need that. But you are also creating awareness by doing things like this for people out there who might not be aware of what children really go through when they are survivors of some sort of abuse as a child. And you had your own eyes open to that with your experiences, that people who don't work in this space or with children or who are not children who have experienced this don't get to know about. And so first, I think that aspect of your work, just being out there and talking and telling people what you do and how you describe it, is amazing around awareness. So how does that sit with you?
I absolutely agree. I say, and you can quote me on this, compassion plus action equals results. So we do hear about
Yes.
awareness, but my thought is always, what are you doing about it? What are we as a society doing about that? There's a thing that hangs in my office that says, create the thing you wish existed. So that's what I did, because yes, we can be aware, and it is good for people's eyes to be open so that they are more aware. And maybe if they say, if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
So hopefully people do say something if they see something that is not right with a child, or the situation is, there's something off about it. But also we have to be doing something about it too.
Yeah, I do.
And that's where you come in. Here we're doing, right? This is
Yes.
part of the action.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And I always, talked about this before. I mean, my prior professional career, and I still am today, I'm an expert in prevention of misconduct within organizations. And one of the ways that we do that is around awareness of what the issue is, anyhow, and what are indicia that the misconduct is happening, right? It's exactly the same when we're talking about doing something like preventing child abuse, right? It's that awareness and helping people to understand what might be happening with the child to indicate that they're experiencing something like that. And certainly the work that you're doing when you're getting down into some of those issues and just talking about your own experiences with this organization helps to create that awareness.
Absolutely. When I speak and I tell people 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before the age of 18, and that's just what's reported, people's eyes get this wide. Not here, doesn't happen here. Yes, it does. So
So let me tell you two things about how I think about that stat. So first of all, my personal anecdotal experience with the people who I've spoken to tells me that number is much larger, right? And that's probably your experience as well. But doing what we do, we stay with the official numbers, right? So let's just take that 1 in 4 girls, right? And let's say that 50% of the world's population is female. You're literally talking about almost 1 billion people on this planet right now today who have experienced that. Those numbers are staggering. They're huge, right? It's crazy. And people don't have that level of awareness that even with the reported stats, those are the numbers we're talking about globally.
right, and they're even more underreported with boys, men. It's
Yes.
embarrassing. They don't know what to think about themselves regarding sex or identity, any of those things. So they very often never say anything.
That's right. And I'm actually one of the things that I'm very passionate about is men. So I say quite often that trauma and abuse know no demographic boundaries whatsoever. And I'm most passionate about men when I talk about that, because I think the societal judgments that become personal judgments and the way that they are showing up with their own struggles and their own suffering and their own experiences is just absolutely ridiculous. So I'm on a bit of a mission to, with this show, including with this show, I'm on a bit of a mission to get men out there talking about their experiences, including with child sexual abuse. And in fact, one of the guests in this series is a gentleman who's experienced that and who's gone on and used his experiences to do good. His life purpose is coming out of that. Yeah, we got a long way to go with our male counterparts for sure. But again, that's just the work we're doing, which is great.
Exactly. We do. Yeah. We should support everyone. That's my feeling. Boys,
I
girls,
agree
men,
with
women, everyone.
I agree with you. Yes. Yeah. So, in your statement there, let's talk a little bit about the concept of love, because for me, ultimately, healing is about love and about knowing what true love is and being able to experience love across a wide variety of relationships. A huge aspect of that, though, is the ability to receive love. And so, being in a place where you're interacting with people who are demonstrating unconditional love for you in particular and giving that to you so that you can experience it and experience receiving it is part of my story, my personal story, right? And the first time that I know that I experienced unconditional love and can tell you that's what it was, I was 50, almost 50 when that happened to me for the first time. And that's just part of my story and my journey. And there may have been times before that when people offered me unconditional love, but I had a hard time seeing it. I was blocked in my ability to see it and to feel it. So it was the first time that I knew it. And so my wish for every child that you help is that they feel that and they are in a place where hopefully they can recognize what it is that Room Redux is giving to them. And I think that's beautiful, that that notion of unconditional love that you're offering. Talk about that for a little bit.
Part of that unconditional love, too, I think by transforming their rooms, thereby transforming their lives, giving them this fresh start, I think it helps them, yes, receive unconditional love or learn to begin to receive unconditional love, but also to find that self love. It's so important for us to love ourselves, how we
Yes.
love others, and truly accept love from others. If we're shameful of our past or what's gone on in our lives, or we think we're nothing or not worthy of love. So that's part of it too, is giving them that self-worth. And it's just a part of it. They're in counseling or they've been through counseling. So they're learning through that part of the healing puzzle as well. But to walk into this room, I mean, I've gotten feedback where the parents or caregivers say, he stands taller, she stands taller. She stopped cutting. There's no more self-harm because
Yeah.
now self-love. And that is monumental. That is huge, which when you think I won't geek out too much with the psychology part of it, but
That's okay. Let's do it.
on,
It fascinates me because you're talking to me about me as a survivor, right? And my own struggles with self love, which I've had some profound healing experiences on my journey that have led me to understand self love and what it truly means and how valuable it is. And now I tell people, like, literally every decision I make in my life is grounded first in self love. And I will not move from that. And of course, I'm considering the other people in my life that are impacted by my decisions. But the first person I am protecting and considering is me out of self love. It took me a long time and some very painful lessons to get there. So I'm super interested in let's geek out. Let's talk about the psychology of it because that fascinates me.
it does me too. And bravo to you. Bravo to you for
Yeah.
having that self-awareness of self-love and hey, I've got to be loved and taken care of myself before I can give to others. It's absolutely true.
Mm.
So yes, we give them a fresh start. They come home to a brand new room. Everything has changed according to their taste. That we fill out a questionnaire that we get from the parent or the caregiver,
Mm.
give them the colors they love, therapeutic tools in their rooms, things they like, all of those things, so they know it's just for them. But on a longitudinal spectrum, we're hoping to truly break the cycles of abuse because very often children who are sexually abused, they go on to perpetrate against other children, siblings, even as adults, hoping to stop that because the brains are often rewired. The wiring changes when a child has been abused. but they don't have to be stuck. It doesn't have to stay that way. And that's what's so amazing. Epigenetics it's just amazing to me. The trajectory of their lives can be changed. So in your case, once you found that self-love, once you found you have support and let others in, others love you and care about you, and you have more self-confidence, and I'm assuming probably you surround yourself with supportive people, with
Mhm.
positive affirmations to yourself, just like how you would speak to me or a child, someone you love, right? So, all of those things, even if you've been through the worst of the worst, your brain, it can change again. Your DNA can change when you have all of these positive aspects that you surround yourself with. I have chills talking about it because
Me.
fascinating.
We are phenomenal beings in our ability to heal. We really are. The things that we can change, even the physical manifestation of trauma and abuse in our bodies, as beings, we have the power, the capacity to change that. And I'm a living test. You've heard me talk about this before. Literally, I'm a radically different person today than the person who I was in June of 2020 when my healing journey began, right? And that is the capacity to rewire, literally to rewire myself. But also, there's an aspect of taking off behaviors and masks that I wore that, in large part, were to help me cope with what I had experienced and really changed me into another being than the one that God brought me into this world to be. Right now, I
Mhm.
mean, I understand that my path and what I do today as the healing mentor means that my whole journey through life is what I needed to go through. And I'm very grateful for that. And I understand it. But take that off, I'm like every other survivor that I've coped in ways. I got rewired, right? That rewiring process began the first time that I was sexually abused at 5, right? And then I got rewired as I lived my life for another 45 years as an unhealthy survivor, doing the things that I did in my life just to get by, to cope. And then I rewired again when I went on my healing journey. So we have an amazing capacity to heal ourselves. And that's what you're talking about, is tapping into that and doing it from ways that are healthy, positive, right? That lift us up as beings have been hurt.
Yeah, those negative neural pathways, especially, I mean, 5 years old, my
Yeah.
goodness, even up into the age of 24, and when that's just when the brain is starting to fully form, it just those pathways don't have to stick. They don't have to stay that way. That again, that's what's so fascinating to me. We can change that, but it really is crucial that we talk to ourselves nicely. I've heard people say horrible things to themselves. Oh, I'm so fat. I'm so ugly. Oh, I'm dumb. I couldn't do that. Yeah. Oh, I one day I was walking up the steps. I just checked the mail. I was carrying my water, the mail, a box, something else, and I tripped and I dropped everything. And I remember saying, "Oh my gosh, stupid!" Like spilled my drink. And I stood up and I thought, "Oh my gosh, I just called myself stupid." And this was like 3 years ago. And I thought, Susie, would you talk to 5-year-old Susie like that? Would you talk
Yeah.
to Beth like that? Why would you call yourself stupid? So from that day on, I thought, nope, I'm going to talk to myself like 5-year-old Susie. It's okay, sweetie. You dropped it. No big deal. It's all right.
No
You're
big deal. Yeah, it's okay. And what part of that, tripping or dropping or whatever happened, what part of that is stupid? None of it, right? Yeah.
exactly.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that I've said quite often, and I believe this about myself, my own inner critic that you're talking about there that says those things to us. It's what I call the wretched abuser. Because to me, it's the absolute worst abuse that we can experience because it's abuse that we inflict upon ourselves. And so I call the inner critic the wretched abuser.
I like that. It's true. You can't get away from yourself. You can't just walk out and slam the door and not talk to you again.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. But recognizing that noisy and very unhealthy chatter in our minds is really important to be able to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
When I recognize if I feel like I start to do that, just stop it. Stop, pivot,
Me
do
too.
a 180,
Yeah.
knock
Me
it
too.
off.
Yeah, I'm much better about that. So, in fact, I am right now, if you go into my bathroom right now, there is a picture on it's on one of my cabinets in the bathroom, and it is a picture, it's my kindergarten picture. And it's taken probably 2 to 3 months, maybe 4 months after I was sexually abused for the first time. And it says a lot to me is about as the child, the young child, who she is. And she's come to me a lot in inner child healing work that I've done. I've had to really focus on her as I've gone through that process. But in front of her, there is this affirmation about being loved, right? And coming into that child is very much loved. And I love that child. She's in me still, and I love her so much. But it is very much a positive affirmation for me of where my trauma and abuse all began and where I've come to, where I have this immense amount of love and gratitude for her. Everything she's done in our life to be the leader of who we are, because she was the first one that hurt, to being the first one inside of me that I had to heal, to move us from a place where all she wanted to do was hide in life to where that's not my path, because I'm meant to be out talking in a very
Wow.
open way about what I've been through. Right? So I've done a lot of work with her, and I've built an enormous amount of compassion and empathy and really deep love for her to be the light and the vessel for my message and the healing that I've been through. I really come a long way. And so she's now in my bathroom, that picture of her in my bathroom with that love, light, I am the vessel affirmation attached to her there that I see every single day that I'm in the bathroom. So it's wonderful.
She should have that prominent place, and she should have that saying right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, she, you, y'all
Yes,
absolutely
exactly. That's exactly right. Yes. Yeah.
deserve that. And
Yeah.
when we do these room transformations, it I have a son, but let's say I had a daughter. I would probably, in my daughter's room, I might put a saying that says, "You're beautiful," or a pillow that says, "Good morning, gorgeous." But we don't do that in these children's rooms because we don't know what their perpetrator said. We don't know
Yeah.
what their perpetrators called them. So it's
Yes.
always very positive affirmations. You've got this, or this girl can, or just those kinds of things. So they have those reminders throughout their room.
Yeah.
It's powerful. It's powerful.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is very powerful. I have a question for you about that process of trying to collect the information about how they like what they want in their room, style, color, characters that they may like, that type of thing. I would have to imagine that for some of the children, and maybe a lot of them, that might be a little bit difficult for them to be able to tell you? And is that I'm just thinking about that from my own experience and whether I would have been able to do that when I was a child.
So keep in mind, we never see the children,
Yeah,
never see them.
yeah.
So when we get a referral from counselors, psychologists, CPS, law enforcement, FBI, we know that the perpetrator is out of the picture and we know that they are in counseling or have been through counseling for the trauma. So we do verify, we talk to the counselor. That's usually how the referrals come through our website. But we set a date for an assessment. We go to the house when the child is not there. And like I said, we have that long questionnaire and we will ask the parent or the caregiver, what colors does she love? What colors does she hate? Same, exactly what you just said. Are they into anime or race cars or princesses, unicorns? All of those different things. What would they like in the room? We only take out of the room what the parent or caregiver says we can take out. Sometimes we take
Mm,
they say just take everything. Sometimes keep stuff in the house in another room. It varies. We do whatever they say. But uh, I also tell them if they have a little bit of trouble thinking, I don't remember exactly. There was some kind of room she liked in the show. We actually did a room transformation. It was called Moxie, and it was after a movie that is called Moxie. I did my homework and watched this movie, which is a teenage movie.
I know
And
what you're talking about.
you too. Okay. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
But that room in that movie was this girl's dream room. And so I watched it and I thought, oh, so we did it very closely to what that room was like. But I'll also tell parents start looking on Pinterest. Be very nonchalant about it, but no, wouldn't this kind of be neat? What do you think about this? Or what do you like? Just put a board together and then send it to us, to me, to the executive director of the chapter, wherever,
Yeah.
and we can kind of go from there too. It's,
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's always beautiful, and they are always just bowled over. We
Yeah.
get the reactions. Again, we're not there. We split before they get home, but parents and caregivers will send us videos or pictures, and I won't play it for you. I don't know if it'll come across the video, but it squeals and screams of delight. It's sometimes teenagers walk in and they say, what the bad word, which I think is awesome because it's a
It is.
genuine reaction, and they
It
can do
is.
whatever they want because there are no strangers in their house. We're not there. So it's all different kinds of reactions, but it's now they're sleeping in their room. Now they're having friends over. Now
Yeah.
they're thriving and mentoring other children. We have had parents and their children come to room transformations. That's amazing. I don't tell anybody who they are, but I know they're there, and it's,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that is amazing to me.
Yeah, that is cool. In video production, we would have the ability to slot that video into this. If you would like to do that, I would love to.
Okay. It would have to be sound only since it's
All
confidential. You don't
good.
get to see the
All
kids.
good. We will do that.
Do
We'll
it.
do sound overlay, and I don't know, we'll put up the logo for Room Redux and maybe some contact information while it's there, and just let the voiceover go so people can hear it. That would be lovely. Let's do that.
Let's do it.
All
I do it
right.
when I go speak.
Absolutely.
I let people hear, and everyone gets real close. They think they need to get real
I
close,
heard
and they're
it.
not going to.
Yeah,
You'll
no,
hear. I promise.
yeah, yeah. Let's do it. Absolutely. Let's do it.
You did get to hear. You were
I
at
have
her
heard it.
gala. You heard. That's right. You heard
Yeah,
one.
I have heard it. Yeah, I was. Yeah, it is great. So I'd love for the audience to hear it because it is wonderful to hear. Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit. Well-being was one of the other topics that you touched on, and what you were saying at the opening of our conversation, the notion of well-being for all of us. And we think about it individually and certainly as adults, the environments that we create for ourselves. But that's an interesting and very valid point as human beings, children, right? Their well-being, and what do we do to facilitate their well-being, that's hugely important. We've talked about some of that already, but one of the things that's in mind for me is the context of bringing together different tools and resources to be able to create a sense of well-being for the child, which is certainly what Room Redux is doing in terms of the environment the child is. And there's an aspect even of activating the senses, right, in their room, with whether it's sight, smell, touch, feel, which all goes to the notion of fostering our well-being. Right?
Exactly. We love to put things like original art in their rooms, and
Mm.
they may know it's original, they may not. Maybe their parents tell them, maybe they don't. But and that can be an Afghan, it can be a painting, a sculpture, all kinds of different things that they can touch. Like I mentioned before, soft furry rugs, pillows,
Mm.
things, textures, all of those things. We're also very aware. We'll ask, but for children who may have autism or some type of sensory overload when
Yeah.
they're in a room, we're careful about what colors we put in the rooms in that regard too. We've transformed a couple of different rooms where the child had seizures
Mm.
at certain times. So there are certain colors, and I talk to doctors about this to find out, okay, what should we not put in there? No strobes, no blinking
Yeah.
lights, things like that. So we're very careful about that. But one of the things when I think about well-being, I think of a couple of different room transformations in particular where we really paid attention to the ceiling. People don't think about the ceiling, but if you're thinking about a room where a child was sexually abused, looking at the ceiling a lot, I'm sure you want to change the ceiling. So Belle of the Ball, she loved Beauty and the Beast, and we painted the entire room blue. It was magnificent. And then I laid on the floor and I told all the volunteers where to nail gun these gold picture frames. We had tons of gold picture frames, all different sizes, and we put them on the ceiling. And it was
Oh,
beautiful. And it
oh
completely
yes.
that feel.
Yes.
And And the one other that I'm thinking of, the room transformation was called Fierce. And the girl loved anything with teeth you can imagine. She was a teenager and just mad about what had happened to her. And she identified with snakes and especially sharks, tigers,
Mm.
that. And so when it's always funny when volunteers look at me like I'm crazy, but I laid on the floor and I said, these three prints, they made one picture, but it's three separate prints.
Yeah.
We're going to put them right above her bed. And so we did. Somehow they figured out how to put those on the ceiling. And sure enough, afterward, because we get feedback, we don't just say bye and we don't ever talk to the families again. We want to keep in touch and see how they're doing a month later, 6 months later, and sometimes years they keep in touch with us. But this girl, the first thing she said to her mom was, and the whole room was beautiful, but the first thing she said was, "Oh my gosh, this is my favorite thing. I love sharks. I feel like I'm in the water with them," because it was an up looking at sharks above type view. And that's what gave her that sense of well being. Isn't that interesting?
It's amazing. And you know what I'm in awe of right now when I'm hearing you speak is there is a gift in you to almost channel what it is that's going to really resonate in those two examples that you've given, which that gives me cold chills because there must be so many children who have benefited and have been helped by that gift that you as an individual have within you to be able to feel that, to know it, to see it, to give that to those children. That's beautiful. That is super cool. Super cool. That's God knowing what he's doing, or she. I do that all the time. What they are doing. He, God. That's God knowing what God's doing.
God knows what God's doing. That's right. I say all the time, God loves Room Redux, loves
That's
children.
amazing. Yes, that is amazing.
Now,
Wow,
if only I
really
could do that in
cool.
my own house, that would be awesome. But
Yeah, I get that.
but when I go into a child's room and
Yeah, but for some reason, it's God, not for some reason. I mean, that you're feeling it. God is leading you to that place to be that vessel to give that gift to the child. That's beautiful.
and it's so much fun.
Blessing, Susie.
Thank you. I just could see what it should be, what it could be. And then I tell you what, on Transformation Day, when it comes to fruition, when what's been in here is, you have to drag me out of the room because it's, oh my God.
I bet. Yeah.
It's the
That's so
best.
cool. Yeah, that's really amazing. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the environmental change and what that's doing. And I feel like I need to ask you, first of all, the psychology of that because you must have studied this. So let's talk about that first. What's happening in the brain with something like that?
Interesting you would ask that because currently my doctoral project, the very end of my doctorate, finally, that is what my research is going to be on. That's what I'm currently working on.
Right.
And fun fact, not so fun fact, I have to have 100 resources for this entire dissertation essentially, and can't find one single thing on how an environment change helps a child who has faced sexual abuse or physical abuse. Nothing. So I'm having to go to feng shui and how color affects mood and how textures in hospital rooms. It's been crazy.
So
It's a little
what you also just said is that's your own research project that you're going to undertake so you can write that book at some point.
exactly. That is definitely on the books.
Which is what we do. We write the books we can't find. Exactly.
Create the thing you wish existed.
That's
That's
exactly
exactly
right.
what you did.
Yep. Yep.
But it's true. I was telling someone today that this orange, and this is my home office, and I had it blue. It was a very light blue. And I remember looking at my Zoom square during COVID and thinking, wow, that's boring. Blue, I love blue, but it's boring. And so I painted it. It's called Invigorate. And that's exactly how I feel when I come in here.
That.
And so, yes, color absolutely affects mood. For a child who maybe has anger issues, things like that, probably not going to paint their room red because that does induce some anger.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons we ask what colors they love, what colors they hate, things like that. But yeah, all of those different things. Lighting too. A lot of children are afraid of the dark. They not only do they not want to be in their room, but they're afraid to be in there, even if they have an overhead light. So that's very often we'll give them the twinkle light. I call them twinkle lights, Christmas lights,
Yeah.
um, rope lights under their new desk, and just all types of options for lights so that they always feel like there's somewhere that they can turn something on, part of our environment, or soften or dim or bright,
Mm, mm,
whatever that may be, just like what
yeah.
they want. Yeah.
Yeah, there is something about the psychology of the rooms, and one of the reasons we've talked about this before, but one of the things that I experienced when I was going through my healing journey, and just a little bit of background on that. So I suffer from dissociation, and there are large parts of my history that don't exist in my mind. And part of that is even being able to know my bedrooms as a child, a kid when I was growing up. And there's nothing that I've experienced or nothing that I've discovered through my healing journey that makes me believe that there was something that happened in my bedrooms that caused me to shut that out. I think it's probably more just in this broad, let me just not record what's happening in my life because of other things that I was experiencing. But I did an exercise with a book I'd have to dig it out. I can't think of the name. It might come to me. I can see the cover of it, but it's a book about healing specifically from child sexual abuse. And there's an exercise in there that has you go through a process of trying to recreate your room. And so it starts with the floor plan. So, like your room or rooms, in my case as a child, can you recreate the floor plan, place furniture? Can you even pull back the colors from those rooms? And it's part of just trying to move through what you were experiencing as a child, right? It's just one of the healing exercises that's suggested in this book. And I did that because can I even do this? And for me, that was really around the dissociation. Like when I was trying to understand why don't I have these memories and this recall into my mind, and trying to stir that up a little bit within me, which wasn't really all that successful when I was doing it. But it just struck me that is, after I met you and the work that you do was specific to the rooms, it just struck me that was also one of the exercises that was in that book, specifically around child sexual abuse and trying to heal that and move past it. So there's definitely something with the spatial aspects of where we are that when you start to change that or look at it in a different way, and for me, that would be looking at it as an adult as opposed to a child who had been in those rooms, right? There's something about that that is healing, very healing, right? It's meant to spur that healing process on.
Absolutely. That's so interesting you mentioned that. I need to know that book. But when children go to an advocacy center for a forensic interview, that's one of the things the forensic interviewer will do is draw a room. So where was this? Where is this? Try to place so that they can jog their memory. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But dissociative identity disorder and dissociation, that is my jam. I have written so many papers on it because it is so fascinating. It to me, I think of it as self-love. I think that our bodies, our brains love ourselves so much. It's trying to protect us. That's what your brain was trying to do. That's what your brain has done. Love Beth, gonna protect her. She doesn't need to know. We're not gonna remember that. It's too hard for us.
Yeah, I when I first got into trauma therapy, because I did a lot of healing with EMDR, which of course in trauma therapy, EMDR focuses on the event itself and then the emotions that go along with it, the negative I statements and all that come along with it. But I told my trauma therapist when we first started working together, I was like, look, I was under this operating assumption that it was really an amnesia, right? My brain had just decided you don't need to know this and buried it. And I wanted to honor that. And I'm not the type that needed more information about what's happened to me. I knew enough. So I didn't want to go digging that up. Like if my brain thinks I don't need to know, then I don't need to know and let's don't. So we modified EMDR so it wouldn't come up. But as I've moved forward and really started to get into, I would say, the finer aspects of my healing and really becoming aware as I've gone through my healing journey of when I'm still dissociating, even now. I don't want to do that anymore. It's a default mechanism for me. And for me, I think I just literally leave my body and stop recording. That's what's happening. That's what I think is, I just am not recording at all. So it's a little bit of a variation on the dissociation. It's not just about amnesia and let's not remember or let's protect, but it's literally a flight mode for me. Let's just go. Let's just leave.
Yeah.
Right?
Shut down.
Yeah, just exactly. We don't need to be here. Let's go somewhere else. And it's got its natural problems. And especially as somebody who's trying to be a healthy adult and trying to explain to somebody why I feel the way I feel in an interaction with them, but I can't describe the interaction that created the emotion. That is not a fun place to be. It's interesting. The name of that book is The Courage to Heal. Hold on, that has been like it's on my website. And sorry, I stepped away just a moment. I'm going to get it.
I'll entertain while you're gone.
It's this is the book, and I'm going to link it as a resource too on this, but it's also on my website. But it's called The Courage to Heal, and it's for women survivors. Which I don't know why we need one for men, as we were talking about earlier. But I think a lot of the principles in there would apply to men as well as women. But yeah, that's where that exercise is. So it's a very interesting one. I found it actually challenging to do that because of the dissociation to recreate the rooms. But I can definitely see the connection, right, from a healing perspective. And when you just radically change the environment for the child, you're literally putting them into a new place, almost giving them a new life as much time as children spend in their rooms, or we spend in our private places that are ours.
Absolutely. And I will say kudos to bravo for the self-awareness to know that maybe you didn't want to.
Got a little bit of a.
Am I frozen?
There you are. Okay.
Okay, it happens.
I don't know. I don't know.
But bravo for having that self-awareness. That's part of self-love too. I don't necessarily need to know exactly what that room looked like because maybe there's a reason I don't need to. And for you to modify EMDR or ask your therapist to do that's a lot of self-awareness. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the things that I talk a lot about. I talk a lot about therapy and engaging with over my life. And like I've had a long experience with therapy that didn't work for many years and then therapy that did work and the reasons why it worked. And a lot of it was having that understanding of myself, which is hard to get there as someone who's trying to heal from these types of things. I look at what Room Redux does in you, just the amazing gift that you've given to children who get to experience that as a part of a toolbox to heal, right? And that's what we need are so many different resources and tools. And so we've touched on a lot of different things here that are those resources, right? And how you get self-love and creating well-being and talk about therapy and changing your room, changing your environment. We need all of those things working together in order to be able to have a more successful healing journey and to leave our past, leave our suffering behind. And I think what you do is novel and unique. I love it. And we've talked a little bit about if I can help you replicate this the world over, which I know you're on a mission to do that. And let's keep doing it, right? Because it's so powerful. And I know from my own personal experience how powerful it can be. Just
love to do it.
Great rule, great tool, great resource.
Let's help all the children. And how you were talking about preventative measures and awareness and all of that. The way I always look at it is I love our mission. I love transforming the rooms and lives of children after the abuse has been found out and they are in counseling and on this new road. But also I love the people who are on the digital forensic side, the people who are rescuing the children, the people who are counseling the children. Just holistically, the collaboration part is so important.
Yeah.
So important. I have a friend, Dr. Fran, she and her business partner started Nurses United Against Human Trafficking. And she started this because as a nurse, she'll tell the story, she missed it. She missed that a child was being trafficked, abused, and she's never forgotten it. And so she teaches nurses what to be aware of, what questions to ask, it's just amazing. And then I have friends who rescue children. And then I have a friend in Georgia who started Atlanta Redemption Inc., ARI. Fascinating. She's in the same space as we are after the abuse has been found out or the trafficker has gone to jail. But women, it's usually women, get branded when they're trafficked. So they'll put certain tattoos on these women. And so she works with tattoo parlors all over that help cover them up or remove them. Or even, I love this part too, scars from self-harm. They'll cover them up, tattoos. That's brilliant.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
That's
really
a fresh
is.
start in itself.
Yeah. And what I love about your story, and I think the stories that you're telling me about these other organizations and how they've come to be, it's just the human spirit and the compassion that we have for our fellow humans, regardless of whether you've experienced the particular trauma or abuse yourself, which is your story because you haven't experienced child sexual abuse, at least that I'm aware of, that we've talked about. Maybe not your direct experience, but you have a compassion for, because you've seen the toll from your work with CAC, you've seen what happens. Right? And that is amazing to me about the human spirit, is that there are people out there who've never experienced any of this directly, yet can feel what the toll is and really want to do something to help. And that is, I love that about the human spirit. I think it's amazing.
I do too. And I know we live in a world that is topsy turvy and upside down, and there's so much friction, and people are, but people complain a lot, but not a whole lot of people are doing anything about what they're griping about. And I'm not saying everybody, I'm just saying I've heard it, I've seen it. And I think I'm not going to be a politician. I'm not going to go rescue children in other countries. I'm not 6'4" and have a gun, but I can do this. And it's like the starfish story. It's cliche. I love it though. Picking the starfish, throwing them out, it makes a difference for that one that you threw out there. So
Yes.
as long as we're doing something,
Yes.
writing a book, speaking, having a podcast, it's all important. And
Yeah.
I've always been able to see people as children. Since I was a child, I just can see, like, I can see little Beth. I haven't even seen your little 5-year-old picture, but I can see you.
See me?
Yes. And I wonder what happened in their, that's why I wanted to be a psychologist. What happened in their life that maybe made them this way? It's just fascinating to just wonder what happened to these individuals in their lives, good or bad. I'm always curious.
Yeah, me too. I find myself doing that a lot, and I've done it forever. I'm like fascinated by people's stories and can spend a lot of time in airports in my lifetime. And I can sit in the airport and see somebody and just make up an entire story about what their life is or where they're headed. And I do find myself now with the work that I do, and it's what I've been through myself. I do often wonder, particularly when you see somebody who you can tell that their frequency, their energy, what they're putting off is in that more lower level or fear-based set of emotions, as opposed to the higher levels and the love-based emotions. When you can see that or feel that, I always wonder that too, like what it is that they've been through in the
Mhm.
past or what they're going through in that moment that's putting them in that place. And yeah, I do that. I do.
I'm a big fan of layovers. I love layovers. I love watching. I do.
Watching.
Like the one time I
Yeah.
don't have to be anywhere or do anything. I'm just there.
I can just observe and chill out. Yeah. Yeah, and if you're like me, you get to the point where you just say, "I'm even just gonna take a little bit of a digital detox while I'm doing this, 'cause I'm traveling." Yeah, it's nice to do it that way. Yeah, it absolutely is, so.
And
Alright, so we will have flashed on the screen when we were talking about the reaction, we'll have in the voiceover we're gonna play, we'll have flashed on the screen a little bit about Room Redux and getting to you, but what else would you like for people to know about how they can find you, get involved, help a child? What would you like for them to know?
you've heard me say this. We say if you have donated time, money, furniture, if you have volunteered, if you have done this, if you have spread the word, then you are Room Redux. So Beth knows you don't go off and say, my friend Susie transforms rooms or Room Redux. They do that.
Hi, Redux.
That's right.
Yes, we are
Thank
Room.
you.
Yes.
Hashtag we are Room Redux.
Hashtag we are Room Redux.
But what that means is it does take all of us. So we are always looking for volunteers in our chat. We have different chapters. So we have, yes, chapters in Texas, also Georgia, Denver, Ohio. We're starting one in New Hampshire, California, Nevada, all over. That's the beginning, right? That's what we're working on.
Amazing. So
Yes,
amazing.
but that takes volunteers and it takes donors. We're always looking for recurring donors. And I say, if it's $5 a month, that's good. If it's 50, it's good. Whatever you can afford, every single little bit helps. And also each chapter, they put up an Amazon registry when they have the design put together and the room transformation name. They will list on Facebook or Instagram, and you can go and shop. You can buy that lamp that's going to go in that child's room or the bedspread. And that's super fun.
Yeah, that is fun.
You get to see the after picture. And, oh, what? I helped do that. So,
yeah, I have not done that yet, but I'm going to. I'm not even sure I knew that existed. So I'm happy to know about that. I'm going to go check that out. Yeah.
it's
Fun.
Yeah. So, and you can visit our website, roomredux.org, and email me, call me, follow us on Facebook, Instagram. I think we're on Threads, LinkedIn, all the socials.
Everywhere. Yes. Yeah, for sure. It's been a delight chatting with you as always. I just love your energy, and spending time with you is such a joy for me. So it fills up my own energetic tank. So thank you so much for that. It's been a lot of fun talking to you here on this episode today.
Thank you for having me, and I can't wait to hug your neck.
Yes, soon. I'm actually going to be down that way in a couple of weeks. So hopefully we're going to make it happen. So yes, I know it. Hopefully. I'm hoping. So I'm finalizing plans. I'll get a message out here shortly, but hopefully I will be able to see you when I'm down there. So
let me know.
And thank you again for all of your work to help children. I'm so grateful for you in this world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beth.
All right. Take care. Thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of Let's Heal with Beth Jones. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I really hope that you've enjoyed the series that I've dedicated to Child Abuse Protection Month. The very best thing that we can do to help children is to prevent it from happening in the first place. That's about awareness. But if you know a child who has experienced that, please help them to heal. All right, everyone. Come on, let's heal. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode of Let's Heal with Beth Jones. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Beth Jones Healing Mentor. And if you'd like to know more about me and my work to help other survivors to heal, please visit me on the web at empoweredsurvivors.com.